Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode 11 titled The Magical Place. Now, after we've had the long, winter break, winter season finale, or winter mid finale, mid season finale, we're finally back with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And of course, the first episode they gave us is a really good one where we finally do get some of the answer of what happened to Coulson. And I'm really glad they did that and they didn't kind of tease it and make it seem like we'd get one thing or another, and then we kind of got like half an answer, although we still kind of did. It was a lot more than I thought we would get. I figured maybe we would get some of the answer or hopefully everything, but of course it's a lot bigger than just he died and he came back to life. It was at least they implanted those memories in his head and he found out, and he was dead for he went to the doctor at the end, and the doctor told him you were dead for days, and somehow they brought him back to life using this weird robot thing that made me kind of think of Terminator. But it's like stimulating his brain and stuff, and he's like, let me die and things like that. So, excuse me. Something that made me think was, he's dead, so obviously, his body's, it's gone cold, electricity is out of it, and there's nothing there. It's just a corpse. But Fury for some reason thought Coulson was worth all this hassle and time and manpower, and he put these doctors into work trying to get Coulson to come back to life. And they have this machine, they chop the top of his head off, and it's like electrocuting his brain in certain areas. And so of course they put these random little memories in to make it seem like he died for a little bit and came back, and so they gave him a vacation. But that's because they did something to him that's never been done in the Marvel universe as far as they know, and that is someone died and was brought back to life by Shield. So it was a really good episode, and I enjoyed the fact that the characters in it, mostly the woman in the flower dress and the clairvoyant, they had some pretty interesting moments. I thought the one guy who was pretty much just beating up Coulson to get information out of him, he was killed off, which I didn't expect. I figured the clairvoyant would talk to him, he threatened him and say something scary, and the guy would freak out and be like, yes sir, of course she can do whatever she wants. But as soon as he touches the phone, like this weird frequency goes off, and his body kind of, it almost looked like it turned to stone a little bit, like it just goes blue, and he's dead. So that was really interesting to me that he just got killed off, because I thought that he and the woman in the red dress, or in the flower dress, kind of had like a relationship based off of the last episode we got, where they're sitting in the car after he talks to the clairvoyant, and she kind of puts her hand on his hand, and I thought they were together maybe, but in this episode it seemed like that was probably just like a random one-off thing, because she may have been trying to get close to the clairvoyant or something. But he's dead now, and she kind of seemed like meh, no big deal. So obviously they weren't really together like that. But he was killed off, and she was actually captured at the end of this episode. But I'm pretty sure that's not the end of her, especially considering the end of this episode, which was kind of like a bonus little scene. We got to see that Peterson is alive, and I figured he had to be. When she mentions how, when she first comes into this episode, she says, the reason I took so long was because I was with our other patient, and I figured it has to be him. And he wakes up at the end of this episode. He's burnt up on one half pretty much, and he lost one of his legs, and he's been implanted with one of the eye bugs. So he's gonna be working for the enemy, obviously not by choice, but he is alive, and they're gonna have to find some way to help him out. But I feel like with him being super powered, it'll be a bit more of a challenge. And also, I feel like with them thinking that he's dead, Centipede is gonna use that to their advantage and not just put him out there like, hey, you have to do this or you have to do that, because they know he's a good guy, so they aren't really gonna want to terminate him, because then they'd be getting rid of one of their best assets, which is the first person they ever got to have powers and actually survive, outside of the one guy who had fire powers, but they kind of had to kill him off because he kind of just lost control, so he was murdered. But it was a really good episode, and it was cool to see the team work together, and everyone just came together, and it was, I want to say it was like a day and a half after Coulson was taken, and everyone's working together on the bus, and there are a ton of other agents, and there was the one female agent whose name I don't know. She was just in the last couple of episodes, but she's on the bus, and she's kind of taking over, and sending people off here and there. They capture this guy in the beginning of the episode to get information, and they're trying to figure out, what does he know? How can we use him to get to Coulson? And everyone pretty much sucks except for the main team. And Fitz and Simmons, mostly Fitz. He's really angry and kind of freaking out, and he like talks about killing people in this episode, or if they die, no big deal, because he wants to get Coulson. Sky's obviously trying to figure out how to help Coulson, even though she's basically stuck because of the little bracelet. And I love how May kind of helps her work outside of the boundaries. But in the beginning of the episode, it seemed like she was just like, she can't help us, and she just got her kicked off the ship. But I thought it was really well done, and she's like, you don't always expect the worst of me, and I thought that was really cool. How she's that type of character where she just seems plain, and she's just like, she's useless, get her out of here. But that was the point of her acting that way. It was her plan to have Sky outside of boundaries, because that's where she works out best. And everyone just came together to work out, and find Coulson, because that's the guy they care about. He's their team leader. It was just overall a really great episode to pick the season back up again after the mid-season finale, and I'm really excited to see where they go. Not only with Coulson now knowing what happened to him, but also obviously what happens with Peterson, because I'm sure with him having one leg, they're also going to give him like a crazy bionic leg. Although I don't know how much stronger that could be considering he has super strength, but he's gonna have like a bionic leg, and he's gonna have like he has like burnt up arms, and half his face is messed up, and now a robot eye. So it'll be interesting to see just how he comes back into the story, and how they're gonna manipulate him, with threatening his son, and having him go up against Shield and go up against the team. So I'm excited for that, and just excited to see where the rest of this season goes, because now that we've gotten really into Coulson figuring out his own past, I feel like that's going to be the overarching story for the rest of the season. So I'm really excited for it. But comment below, let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Favorite parts, least favorite parts, and what are you guys most excited to see for the rest of this season? So comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.